Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California has firsthand experience with putting together an impeachment case against Donald Trump. He was the lead impeachment manager for Trump's first impeachment last year. You have to, I think, go into this job, Congressman, as an impeachment manager with the expectation that that this is a persuadable audience. And so from that perspective, what did you notice today in the presentations of the managers as an attempt at, again, this is an attempt at persuasion. For whatever Republicans say about political theater, they really are trying to get the 67 votes. What did you notice today on that front?
Well, they delivered exactly what they said they would, and that's the sign, I think, of a good case. You tell the jury what you're going to show them, then you show them the evidence, and then at the end in your closing, you tell them what you showed them. Here, they laid out methodically, step by step, how the President of the United States first lied about the upcoming election, wouldn't commit to a peaceful transfer of power, lied while the election was taking place and its aftermath, then systematically tried in every way through the courts, and when that didn't work, through local elected officials, state elected officials, and finally to stop this last step, and that is the certification of the results. And there he pointed this mob right at the Capitol, and he pointed the mob right at Mike Pence. And I think that presentation, showing the video, showing what he was doing and saying and tweeting in real time while you're watching those people maraud through the Capitol, couldn't have been more powerful. Just a compelling presentation to anyone with their eyes open. And I think the managers hope and pray the senators have their eyes open, but they know that the nation is watching.
That point about January 6th to me was very striking today. Again, as someone who spent a lot of time thinking about and covering this, I think Eric Swalwell referred to it as a save the date with the president saying, come January 6th will be wild. But it struck me today watching, I think for the first time, that January 6th wasn't a thing until Donald Trump made it a thing. That it was created as an event sheerly through Donald Trump, who made it so. And I thought that point was hit home today in a way that I hadn't quite appreciated before.
I think that's exactly right. That date was obviously a pivotal date, but it wasn't necessarily a date to have a demonstration or to even have a rally. No, that was picked particularly because that was the last opportunity for Donald Trump to steal the election, was to stop this joint session of Congress. And what's more, not only that date and that place, but also the person of Mike Pence, because the vice president's role in that process is really just a ceremonial one. But Donald Trump made it bigger than that. He laid the blame at Mike Pence's feet for his election loss. That was his last-ditch effort, and it put the vice president's life at risk, as well as the rest of us. But imagine that. The president of the United States puts his own vice president's life at risk. And why? So he can help steal an election.
Yeah, those 2 points I thought were two of the points that most clearly registered today. That January 6th as a date and event was created by Donald Trump, and Mike Pence as a target of pressure, as a fulcrum of the future, as a scapegoat for defeat. All of those exist nowhere in the ether but for Donald Trump putting them in people's minds. It's not like every year when we have election, we sit around thinking, well, it's the certification day today. I wonder if the vice president will certify. That this is a creation of Donald Trump solely and exclusively.
That's absolutely right. And the managers are also anticipating what the defense will try to do, which is they'll try to say this was just one date at random, one speech, and it would violate his First Amendment rights if you were to hold him responsible for this attack. But what the managers showed was, first of all, Jamie so beautifully rebutted that constitutional bogus claim. There's no First Amendment right to send a mob to the Capitol and threaten the lives of legislators. But more than that, this isn't just about that one speech. This is about a course of conduct, a pattern and practice, something the president put in motion, kept in motion, and targeted on that date, in that place, at that body to stop that process and use violence to do so, which is exactly what happened. And it gets us back to the very opening point of the trial, and that is, if it's not impeachable, to convict and disqualify a president from running for election who points a mob at the Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power, then there's no such thing as impeachment anymore. And it's basically all bets are off in terms of what a president can do.
Do you worry that that might be the outcome here?
I do worry about it. Just as we worried in the first trial that if we proved him guilty, as I think we did, and they nonetheless refused to convict, we could expect that he would cheat again, that he would, that his conduct would be even more dangerous. And we should have the same expectation here. If he's not disqualified, then if he runs again, we can expect him to put the country through hell all over again.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.